You called it Monkey Wards. Everybody did. Montgomery Ward was the name on the sign and the name on the catalog and the name on the bag your mother carried to the car, but nobody in America called it that. You called it Monkey Wards. And the moment you hear those two words right now, you can see the green awning and the glass doors and the woman behind the jewelry counter who knew your mother by name. Before we dive in, hit subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you are watching from. The catalog came twice a year and it landed on the kitchen table with a weight that announced itself. Your mother picked it up first. She went straight to the curtains, the bedding, the sewing supplies. Your father took it after dinner and turned to the tools, the tires, the automotive section in the back where everything was organized by what a man needed to keep his house running and his car on the road. You got it last. You lay on the living room floor on your stomach with a pencil, and you turned to the toy section and you circled everything you wanted for Christmas with a seriousness that no adult in the room took seriously, but you meant with your whole heart. You circled the bicycle, you circled the baseball glove, you circled the walkie-talkies and the football and the chemistry set, and you knew that you would get maybe one of those things if you were lucky, but the act of circling them all was part of the ritual, and the ritual was part of Christmas, and Christmas was not Christmas without the Montgomery Ward catalog open on the living room floor with a boy lying next to it and a pencil wearing down to the eraser. The store was different from every other store your mother took you to, and it took you years to understand why. It was calm, not quiet. There were people, there was music, there were announcements on the intercom, but it was calm in the way that a place is calm when it has been doing the same thing for so long that it no longer needs to prove anything. The aisles were wide, the shelves were stocked, the floors were clean. The woman behind the counter in the jewelry department had been there since your mother was a girl, and when your mother walked up, she said hello by name and asked about your grandmother, and your mother talked to her for 10 minutes while you stood there holding a shopping bag and understanding nothing about what you were witnessing except that it was important. Your mother bought her jewelry there, not the expensive kind, the kind that came in a small box and cost $12 and matched the dress she was going to wear on Sunday. She bought her kitchen curtains there. She bought the towels for the bathroom and the sheets for the beds and the tablecloth for Thanksgiving. She walked through those departments the way she walked through her own house, knowing where everything was without looking, reaching for things by memory, and the women who worked there knew what she needed before she said it because they had been selling it to her for 15 years. Your father went straight to the back. The automotive department at Montgomery Ward was his territory the way the kitchen was your mother's, and he moved through it with the same quiet authority. He bought his tires there. Not because they were the cheapest, he could have gotten cheaper tires at the gas station, but because the man in the automotive department at Ward's knew his car and knew his driving and knew that he needed the all-weather radials, not the highway tread, because of the hill on Elm Street that turned into an ice rink every February. Your father trusted that man. He trusted him the way he trusted his barber and his mechanic and the handful of other men in town who knew one thing well and did not try to sell you something else. The restaurant inside the store was small and plain and served food that nobody would remember if the memory were only about the food. A grilled cheese sandwich, a cup of tomato soup, a slice of pie that came from a case by the register and sat on a white plate with a paper doily underneath it. You sat at the counter on a stool that spun, and your mother sat next to you, and the two of you ate lunch in the middle of a department store on a Tuesday afternoon because she had been shopping since 10 o'clock and her feet hurt and you were hungry, and the restaurant was right there between the shoe department and the appliances. And it never occurred to either of you that eating lunch inside a store was unusual because at Montgomery Ward it was not unusual. It was Tuesday. Back-to-school shopping at Monkey Ward's was a ritual you hated and your mother loved. She took you in August every year, and you stood in the boys' department while she held pants up to your waist and shirts up to your shoulders and decided things about your appearance that you had no vote in. The pants were always too stiff. The shirts were always too clean, the shoes were always too new, and you knew that by October they would be scuffed and broken in and comfortable, but in August they were punishment, and your mother called them investment. She bought you 3 pairs of pants, 4 shirts, a jacket, and shoes she paid with a Ward's credit card that she kept in a special slot in her wallet. The total was written on a carbon copy receipt that she folded and put in her purse and never looked at again because she already knew what it said and she had already decided it was worth it. The toy department at Christmas was the reason you agreed to go shopping with her in the first place. It was in the back of the store, past the furniture, past the lamps, past the washing machines, and you walked through all of it without seeing any of it, because the only thing that mattered was the aisle where the toys were stacked floor to ceiling in boxes with pictures on the front that promised you everything. You stood in that aisle and you looked up and you calculated which box matched which circle in the catalog, and you touched the ones you could reach and you imagined the ones you could not. And your mother found you there 20 minutes later, standing perfectly still, staring at a shelf, and she did not rush you because she remembered doing the same thing in the same store when she was your age. There is something about Montgomery Ward that most people do not know, and when you hear it, you will not believe that you did not know it already. The most famous reindeer in the world was born inside Montgomery Ward. Not in a children's book publisher, not in a Hollywood studio, not in a songwriter's apartment. In the advertising department of a department store in Chicago, written by a man who was paid to write catalog copy and who spent his evenings testing the story on his 4-year-old daughter while his wife lay in the next room, dying. Robert L. May was 34 years old in 1939. He had dreamed of writing the great American novel, but life had delivered him to a desk at Montgomery Ward where he wrote descriptions of washing machines and winter coats. He was small, he had been shy his whole life, he had been teased as a child for being the smallest boy in every classroom he ever sat in. And in 1939, while his wife Evelyn was losing her battle with a terminal illness and the medical bills were burying him alive, his boss asked him to write a Christmas story that the store could give away to children who visited Santa Claus. May sat at his kitchen table after work and wrote the story of a misfit, a reindeer with a nose so red that the other reindeer laughed at him and would not let him play their games. A reindeer who was different in a way he could not hide, who carried his difference on his face for the whole world to see, and who discovered on one foggy Christmas Eve that the thing that made him different was the thing that saved everyone. May named him Rudolph after rejecting Rollo and Reginald, and he wrote the story in rhyming couplets and read each new page to his daughter Barbara, who was 4, and whose approval mattered more to him than his boss's. His boss almost killed it. A red nose, he said, that is the symbol of a drunkard. You cannot give children a story about a reindeer with a drinking problem. May took a colleague from the art department to the Lincoln Park Zoo and had him sketch real reindeer with a glowing red nose, and the sketches were charming enough to change the boss's mind. Montgomery Ward printed 2,400,000 copies of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and gave them away in their stores that Christmas. It was a sensation. Evelyn May died around the time the story was finished. Here is the part that breaks your heart. Robert May wrote Rudolph as an employee of Montgomery Ward. The company owned the copyright. May, a widower with a small daughter and medical debts that were consuming him, earned nothing from the most beloved Christmas story since A Christmas Carol. He watched Rudolph become famous. He watched 2,400,000 children carry his story home from a store he worked in for a salary that could not cover the bills his wife had left behind. And he could not do a thing about it because the story belonged to his employer. In 1947, May walked into the office of Montgomery Ward's CEO, a man named Sewell Avery, the same Sewell Avery who had been physically carried out of his own office in a desk chair by United States Army soldiers 3 years earlier for defying President Roosevelt during a wartime labor dispute, and asked for the copyright. Avery gave it to him. Nobody knows exactly why. Maybe it was decency. Maybe it was because Avery, who had fought the President of the United States from a desk chair carried by soldiers, understood something about a man who refuses to let go of what belongs to him. Whatever the reason, Avery signed the rights over to Robert May, and May's brother-in-law Johnny Marks wrote a song, and Gene Autry recorded it, and it became the second best-selling Christmas song in the history of the world after White Christmas. Robert May called his house the house that Rudolph built. It paid for 6 children's education. The shy, small copywriter who wrote catalog descriptions for a department store created the most famous reindeer on Earth while his wife was dying in the next room. And the company gave it back to him, and for one moment in the history of American business, the right thing happened to the right person. The company that gave the world Rudolph could not save itself. Montgomery Ward had been the largest retailer in America at the end of the 1930s, 600 stores with green awnings in every small town and every big city in the country. But after the war, the man in charge refused to expand because he believed another depression was coming. It never came. Sears expanded, Ward waited, and by the time Ward realized the depression was not coming, Sears was 3 times its size, and Walmart and Target were coming up behind both of them with prices that neither could match. The company changed hands so many times that the employees stopped learning the new owner's name. An oil company bought it. A financial firm stripped it. A greeting card company looked at it and walked away. By the late 1990s, Montgomery Ward was a store that sold everything and stood for nothing, and in retail, that is the same as being dead. On December 28, 2000, 3 days after Christmas, Montgomery Ward announced that it was closing every remaining store. 250 locations, 37,000 employees, 128 years of green awnings and jewelry counters and automotive departments and lunch counters and catalogs on living room floors. Over. It was the largest retail liquidation in American history at the time. The stores emptied out within weeks. The signs came down. The awnings were removed. The buildings became something else or nothing at all, and the woman behind the jewelry counter who had known your mother by name went home and did not come back. Your mother kept a Montgomery Ward catalog in the house for years after the stores closed. She did not order from it. She did not look at it. She kept it in the same drawer where she kept the phone book and the church directory and the other things that connected her to a world that was slowly becoming a world she no longer recognized. The catalog was not a shopping guide anymore. It was proof that the store had existed, that the restaurant had existed, that the grilled cheese and the tomato soup and the pie on the white plate with the paper doily had existed, that the woman behind the jewelry counter had existed, and that the Tuesday afternoons when she and her daughter sat on spinning stools and ate lunch inside a store and talked about nothing important were real and had happened and were not something she had imagined. Montgomery Ward invented the mail order catalog. Montgomery Ward created Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Montgomery Ward put a green awning over the door of every small town in America and said, "Come in, we have what you need." And on a December afternoon in the year 2000, somebody turned off the lights and locked the door, and 128 years of Monkey Wards was over. The only thing left was the catalog in the drawer, and the song on the radio every December that nobody knows came from a copywriter at a department store who wrote it while his wife was dying, and his daughter was listening, and his heart was breaking. For one Christmas, the world was saved by a reindeer with a red nose that almost never existed, because somebody thought it looked like a drunk. What do you remember most about Monkey Wards, and did your family call it that too?